What did I say? What I say? I'm not panicking. Season's back on, baby. Welcome back to the Chicago Sports Corner. I'm Alex, and let's talk about the Chicago Cubs' performance in June. I got to my May recap video a little bit late, so I did talk about their series against the Athletics and the Giants. We're going to start with their series in Denver. Now, they did play the Giants again afterwards, and the Rockies again afterwards there as well. So we'll start there. If you want to see anything about where we were at the start of the month after they had lost series to the A's and the Giants, go ahead and go watch the recap in May, because I said I wasn't panicking just yet. It's May. They have another 4 months to figure this out. It's fine if they are still playing this bad at the end of June, then I'm panicking. But that has not been the case. So let's talk about where they're at right now. Look, I understand why people were calling for heads. The team, after their first series against the Rockies, who, by the way, were pretty much the worst team in baseball again, they lost that series. That was the 10th series in a row that the team had not won. They had lost 9 of their last 10 series, and the one series they didn't straight up lose, they split against the Pirates 2-2 on the road. That's been it for the last month at that point after they had played the Rockies. And I want to point out the fact that they were up 1-0 in the second game against the Rockies, and then allowed a homer in the 8th. Ian Happ saving the day, and then just putrid pitching and defense in the bottom half of the 9th to lose that game. That was pathetic. That was a pathetic performance that night. And I know that they won the next game to avoid the sweep, but it's just infuriating. That's the thing. In this stretch, though, where they had been losing, or they hadn't won a series in a month, they'd only been swept twice. It was against the Brewers and the Astros back-to-back in that 10-game losing streak. They found a way to win a game in pretty much every other series. Here's the problem. You're still losing each of those series. You're not getting swept, but you ain't winning series. Going 1-2 is a bad thing every time you go out into a given location against a given team. You need to win at least 2. I mean, I'm not asking for you to go out and sweep every time. You win 2 or 3, I'm usually pretty happy. But when you're at this point where you have lost 10 consecutive series, that's a problem, and that's got to fix. That's got to fix itself, and you're going to have to find a way to just luck yourself into a win. Furthermore, I understand why everyone was upset after that Rocky series. I was too. I was super pissed. But I also knew that there was still a lot of time left for them to correct the ship and still be okay, because they had a good enough April to kind of that this May didn't completely tank their season. Now we're at a point where we're not even talking about that. It was really alarming that the team dropped series to the A's, the Giants, and the Rockies back to back to back. The A's are not a terrible baseball team, but the Rockies and the Giants have not been good this season. That cannot happen. And what do you know? They are going to play the Rockies and the Giants again. Oh, what do you know? They get to play the Giants and the Rockies yet again. As opposed to playing home for the Giants and road for the Rockies, they flip it. They go to San Francisco and the Rockies go to Wrigley. And the Cubs respond by winning both of those series for their first series victories in a month. Keep in mind, before that series that they won against the Giants, their last series victory was a 4-game sweep of the Cincinnati Reds the first week of May. It's been way too long since the Cubs have won a series. That one, even though they dropped the final game in that series, they won the first 2, and they won them pretty convincingly, a 5-1 and a 6-1 victory. They lost that last game 5-1, but the fact that they won those first 2 games and won 3 in a row was just really nice to see after, being completely awful. Then the Rockies come to town and they do a much better job. They win that series. They drop one game, which I'm not happy about. But at the end of the day, they're able to get a season split with the Rockies after looking terrible those first two games against them in Denver. And look, this could be one of those things where you're looking at it at the end of the year and the Cubs are the top wild card or maybe the second wild card by just a few games, maybe a game or two. And you just sit there wondering, well, if they had woken up a little earlier and not lost two games in Denver or lost three games to the Rockies in total or three games to the Giants in total, that would have been nice. But we're not at that point yet. Anyways, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of optimism showing within the Cubs fan base here because guess what? It was the Giants and the Rockies, two teams who have not been very good this season up to this point. The Rockies have been the worst team in the National League. The Giants have underperformed like crazy. Now, the Cubs get to play the Toronto Blue Jays at home. All right. You know, after 2 weeks of playing the Giants and the Rockies and half a month of playing teams strictly from the West Coast, it's nice to see someone new. They get the Blue Jays on a Friday at 1:20 at Wrigley. Place going to be rocking. And they thoroughly destroy the Blue Jays. Kick them up and down the field. That was just an embarrassment for the Blue Jays. 16-2 the final score. The Jays would win the next game 8-6 after the Cubs blow that game. They blew it, which didn't really inspire a lot of confidence. But the last game of this series was canceled. It has been rescheduled to early August, so we'll see who ends up winning the series later on down the road. But it's really here that something changes within the complexity of this season. I don't know exactly what happens, but the complexity of this team just flips right here. And look, maybe they needed some rest because they had 2 rest days in between the end of the Toronto series and the beginning of their series in New York at Citi Field against the New York Mets. The first game against the Mets was postponed and rescheduled for a later doubleheader, and that last game against the Blue Jays was also postponed. So, the Cubs get 2 days off, and they arrive in New York, and they go play the Mets, and it is the definition of a tune-up series. After the Cubs' 16-2 win, which saw them go up 7-0 at the end of the first against the Blue Jays, Pete Crow-Armstrong, after that game, in his previous 18 games, had hit 34 hits, 5 doubles, 2 triples, 9 home runs, and 6 stolen bases. Oh, by the way, I'm totally forgetting that Pete Crow-Armstrong also hit for the cycle in this span against the Rockies, in which they barely escaped that game, by the way. They had to walk off to win that game. And Pete Crow-Armstrong did the cycle in reverse order: home run, triple, double, then the single, in which he was promptly caught at first trying to steal. He's picked off right after he got the cycle, which was just awesome. But the fact that the Cubs had to walk off that game after PCA had his cycle, ridiculous. Ridiculous. But I totally forgot about that. So, yeah, that was kind of interesting. Anyways, moving on. At the start of the series against the Mets, it was still a recurring problem that the pitching staff could not hold a lead. They had allowed 8 runs in the 7th inning or later in that last game against the Blue Jays, which was why the Cubs choked that game. But the one bright spot has really been Ben Brown, which is kind of surprising because Ben Brown was getting torn apart last season. Was not very good last year. But he has come in and he's been flexible as a reliever, and he's come back in as a starter and pitched some huge innings for this team with so many starting pitchers down right now. I mean, I'm not kidding when I say that probably 6 of the top 7 pitchers the Cubs have that they can throw out on a given baseball game day were out at this point in the season. Cade Horton, Justin Steele, Matthew Boyd, Jamison Tyone, Edward Cabrera, and Ben Brown were all out by the middle of this Mets series. Just embarrassing. This pitching staff has been decimated from the beginning of the season with Justin Steele. Still haven't seen him pretty much since opening day 2025. It's been a year and a half since we've seen Justin Steele pitch for the Chicago Cubs, which is really unfortunate. I know he wants to get back out there. I hope he can get back out there this year. And it's Shota Imanaga has been the healthiest pitcher for this team over the last 2 years, which is nice. I think he's a good pitcher. Some people give him a little bit more crap than he deserves, in my opinion, but I think he's a very, very solid option. Edward Cabrera, he was having a nice start. He was allowing probably about 2 or 3 runs a game, but the Cubs were kind of winning more often than not when he was pitching. Tyone has kind of been the 4th or 5th best pitcher that this rotation has had for a couple of years now. So he's been a reliable arm when some of the top guys go down, and when he's kind of found his groove, he can be a really, really good pitcher, but he definitely has his inconsistencies. The thing is, all of them are hurt. Oh, not to mention Cade Horton went down. He's got Tommy John, and he pitched maybe 3 games this year. So now the Cubs are without Cade Horton for probably the same time they're without Justin Steele, so he's probably not going to come back until this time next year. So, I mean, this pitching staff, especially the starting pitchers, have just been decimated by injury. And to see them go out and play as well as they did against the Mets was incredibly impressive. Now, I know the Mets have underperformed this year, but that's still in a very expensive lineup. The Mets have just been a train wreck this season. But you need to find some sort of confidence. It's a long 162-game season. You gotta find some opponent that you can pick on. And you didn't get that opportunity, and you didn't take advantage of the Giants and the Rockies that you just played. I'm okay with you taking advantage of the Mets. The Cubs sweep the season series. They go 7-0 against the Mets, winning 9-6 on the first day. And then in a doubleheader, they win 10-3 and 10-5. Now, there is definitely something to be said about just how terrible the Mets are. They had 5 errors in a singular game in this series, which is just unfathomable for a Major League Baseball team to have. But also, the Cubs offense was waking up. Pete Crow-Armstrong was still doing his thing as the Cubs won that final game in extra innings, and he dealt the killing blow in the top of the 10th inning. But I want to focus on another guy that has been heavily scrutinized this season. It's Dansby Swanson. You know, at this point in the season, as they're going into this series against the Mets, Dansby Swanson has been one of the bottom qualified hitters in Cubs history. He really hasn't been doing great at the plate. But apparently his bat decided to just wake up, and he became one of the greatest baseball players you've ever seen in your entire life. I mean, seriously. I mean, let me read this off for you. In the first 3 games of this series against the Mets, Dansby Swanson went 2 for 3 with a home run, a double, and 4 RBI. And then in both of those games in the doubleheader, he went 2 for 7, but had 2 home runs, which net 7 runs for the Cubs. 3 for 5 in the second game with a triple and another 4 runs batted in. He's the first player since 2002, the year I was born, with 15 or more RBI in a 3-game span. Are you kidding? And here's more about specifically the day of the doubleheader that is just baffling about Dansby Swanson. He hit a grand slam, a 3-run homer, a triple, he stole a base, and had 10 RBI. He is the first guy to do that since RBI became a stat in 1920. Those 5 things, no other guy had done 3 of them on the same day, much less all 5 of them. Dansby Swanson just turned into God at the plate for some reason against the Mets that day. He's been a god at shortstop for a handful of years. But to see this stuff at the plate for him, look, the Mets series was great for the team. Dansby Swanson had his breakout series this year. Pete Crow-Armstrong still playing at a high level. and the pitching didn't completely collapse and actually had a very strong series despite missing 6 starters. So, who do they get to play next? Oh, the Milwaukee Brewers, of course. A team that has just completely steamrolled the National League yet again. Even though they've lost a couple pieces, they still have solid pitching because the Brewers always have solid pitching. They can just take a guy off the street and turn him into the next Cy Young candidate. And next, the Cubs have to go and face Jacob Misiorowski on Friday. Then they play Kyle Harrison on Saturday. And then Brandon Woodruff on Sunday. The amount of people I saw that were like, look, if they get one game against that lineup, with our pitching lineup and everything, they'll be happy. But how if I told you the Cubs won this series? When I saw Jacob Misiorowski pitch 105.5 miles per hour to Pete Crow-Armstrong, that's when I knew they weren't winning this game. And the fact that PCA makes contact with that pitch is insane. I mean, seriously, 105.5, that's not a plate. That's off the arm. If I remember correctly. That's off the arm. The fact that that has even made contact is a win in my book. But once I saw that, I knew they weren't winning. Seiya Suzuki hits a home run off of Misiorowski, but that was pretty much all the Cubs were able to get. The Brewers piled on in the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning to get to 6-1. Cubs were only able to score one more run in their comeback effort. They lost the first game 6-2, but they played a great series after that. You want to know how bad it has gotten for the Cubs pitching staff? They picked up David Peterson from the New York Mets, and Peterson had an ERA of over 6. That is abhorrent. But he gets the start against Harrison on Saturday, and 5 2/3 only allows 2 runs. The Cubs win 8-2, by the way. Ian Happ with a 3-run homer that really sealed the deal in the 7th. What? And then on Sunday, when what essentially becomes a bullpen game for the Chicago Cubs, they're able to manage the game defensively. Brandon Woodruff does not allow a run, and that does not surprise me. He pitched nearly 6 innings. But the Cubs, it felt like it could have gone off the rails. Rollison was pulled after the 2nd inning after allowing a run. It was 1-0, by the way. Bryce Wilson comes in and pitches 4 1/3, and they were huge innings. Cubs find a way to tie it on a wild pitch in the 7th inning. The teams cannot score. We go to extras. And the Cubs put it down their throats. They go up 2-1, and then Seiya Suzuki drives in 2 more. The Cubs go up 3 runs, going to the bottom of the 10th. Jordan Wicks comes out to go pitch, and he's been a prospect the Cubs have liked. He's been a hot prospect. Hasn't necessarily translated into an elite pitcher in this league for a variety of reasons. But he comes in. 1 run comes in. A 2nd run comes in. There's only 1 out, and the bases are loaded. What happens next? A double play! A double play ends the series, and the Cubs win 4-3. Oh my gosh! 5-4-3, Bregman to Horner to Bush ends the series. The Cubs win in 10 innings, and they steal, and I mean steal, a series on the road in Milwaukee. What a gutsy performance by that team. Like, when I say that this is ridiculous, and this is a huge victory for the Cubs, I mean it. In a series that saw Jacob Misiorowski go up against Colin Ray, Kyle Harrison go up against David Peterson, and then Brandon Woodruff against Ryan Rollison, and the Brewers don't win that series. Oh, by the way, the Brewers are at home too. It's just insane. And when you hear the crowd pop and the crowd roar when Suzuki hits that single to drive in 2 runs in the 10th, and when that double play is made, there's a reason why Cubs fans call Milwaukee Wrigley North. There is a reason. And so things are now really turning around. Like, it doesn't feel like, oh, they're just beating up on some bad teams. That was a massive road series win against a divisional rival, against a team that has you in every single metric, especially in the pitching department. So now the Cubs have won 12 of their last 16 games. It may not feel crazy because they had... And so now the fans are getting back into it. This was the wake-up series. This feels like the series that turns around a season. When you're that outmatched in almost every single facet, but especially in the pitching department, you do not expect to win that series on the road against a team that is much better than you purely by the record. And you have not been playing very well over the last month and a half at this point. You go in there and win that series. At this point, the Cubs have now won 12 of their last 16 games, and they've completely turned things around. All they needed was one series win, and they're right back into the thick of things. They get the Padres at home next, and they started off with a nice win. It's a competitive game. They're down 1-0. It's a competitive game. They're down 2-0. They end up tying it relatively quickly, back up at 2. But as we head to the 9th, the Cubs are in a position to walk it off, and Mason Miller comes out, which usually means, all right, we're going to extras. That's the reputation Mason Miller has been building up over the last year plus, pretty much since he got traded to the Padres. And even before that, when he was playing with the Athletics, that was definitely a reputation that he was having as well, as just a whiz, a guy that can just blow it right by you. He only needs to throw about 20 pitches max so he can just throw the heat. Seiya Suzuki takes him almost out of the yard. It looks like it might go, but it cannot be caught in left field. It drops harmlessly to the ground. PCA touches home. Cubs win. That's the 10th walk-off win this season for the Chicago Cubs. And we got to talk about Seiya Suzuki. He has been on a heater at the end of June here. He's now homered off of Mizorowski, Harrison, and just walked off the Padres off of Mason Miller in the past week. And not even that, like the past 4 games at that point. The guy has been playing out of his mind, and he's been like not even a massive story because Crow-Armstrong's been having a great June. Dansby Swanson's breaking out of his slump. And then you have Seiya Suzuki getting his bat rolling as well. Not a lot of people are talking about Seiya specifically, mainly because he's the 3rd one in a row to kind of get hot again. The next day, the Cubs are going to get some reinforcements at the pitching mound. It's Matthew Boyd who's finally back in the lineup, finally got a starter back in the rotation. And Fernando Tatis takes him literally out of Wrigley Field right away. Yay, that's awesome. But no harm, no foul, because the Cubs were right there to make sure that that one didn't really mean a ton, because they tie it up, and then Dansby Swanson, with his 12th home run of the year, gives the Cubs the lead 2-1. And then Alex Bregman, a 3-run homer. Cubs go up 5-1. Crow-Armstrong hits one to go up 9-3 in the 6th. And then the Cubs get a little bit of a scare. They allow 4 runs in the 8th, but are able to hold on. Rollison getting the save to get the win 9-7. I mean, the Cubs really won this game by the long ball. 5 home runs hit in this game. Dansby Swanson responsible for 2 of them. Crow-Armstrong got one. Then Bregman, of course, got the 3-run homer. And Michael Busch also left the building. It was a huge day for home run fanatics of baseball. They had a nice time watching this game. Pete Crow-Armstrong finishes the month of June hitting 11 home runs. The guy found his stride again. He really struggled for a good portion there in May, but he's found his bat again. And what do you know? When your top guys start playing like your top guys again, you're starting to win a lot more baseball games. Here's another ridiculous stat for you. Pete Crow-Armstrong is just one of 3 players in MLB history to have a month where he hit 375 or better with his average, 775 plus in his slugging percentage, had 80 total bases, 15 or more walks, 10 or more home runs, and 5 or more stolen bases. The only 2 other guys to do that, Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth. I think that's kind of good company. Pete Crow-Armstrong in the same sentence as Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth. And by the way, those records, of course, were set back in, the 20s and 30s. We haven't seen a month like this in a century. The Cubs officially go 16-10 in June, which on the surface doesn't look like a great record, but when you consider the fact that the first week and a half was not good and it got better as it went on, you'll take it. That's still a top 5 record in Major League Baseball for the month of June, though, 16-10. July, hopefully, is more of the same. And if it is, I think that they'll be in a good position to try and see if they can maybe catch the Brewers. But there's one more game to talk about because I wanted to wait until that series against the Padres was finished to put a nice little bow on this thing. And oh boy, I probably waited for a good one. The Cubs put up 23 runs. 23! 8 home runs! Dansby Swanson hit 3 home runs in the game! What happened? They just took the Padres pitchers for a ride. They had 5 home runs on them the day prior. They can't stop hitting the long ball. Seiya Suzuki gets the party started. I mean, Dansby Swanson hit 2 home runs in the first 3 innings. What just happened? What was that? What did I witness? Suzuki hits one. Swanson had his trio, including a grand slam. I know it was off a position player, but who cares? It's a 3rd home run of the game. It's a grand freaking slam. Pete Crow-Armstrong got one. That's 5 home runs right there. Michael Conforto hit 2 home runs in this game. And then Michael Busch topped it off with yet another insurance home run at the end of the game. 23 runs. Now look, I've been throwing a lot of numbers at you, but I'm going to throw one more at you. Dansby Swanson has 26 RBI in his last 10 games. You know, this crazy series against the Padres, which now has seen him hit 5 home runs in 24 hours. Then you take into account the Mets series was also within the last 10 games. He has 26 RBIs in the last 10 games. The only other players to do that in a 10-game span within a singular season: Joe DiMaggio, Jimmy Fox, Lou Gehrig twice, and Mel Ott. That has not been done since 1939. And of all guys to do it in the current era of Major League Baseball, it's Dansby Swanson, not a guy who has been known for his prowess at the plate. He has been known for his prowess as a defender. You would expect it to be from a guy like Aaron Judge or Mike Trout. Hell, you want to go back even farther during the steroids era, Barry Bonds never did this. Mark McGwire never did this. Sammy Sosa never did this. Derek Jeter never did this. Dansby Swanson is the guy that's going to do this. What an insane sport we watch. Baseball is a wild sport. I mean, seriously, Dansby Swanson woke up on June 30th with 11 home runs and 46 RBI. He goes to sleep on July 1st with 16 home runs and 57 RBI. Finally, Pete Crow-Armstrong has a 5.3 WAR, which is highest amongst Major League Baseball center fielders. No other center fielder in Major League Baseball has a WAR higher of 3 right now. No one higher than 3. That is how important PCA is to the Chicago Cubs' success. As it pertains to the future, this weekend, on 4th of July weekend, as it seems like they do almost every year, the Cubs and the Cardinals will get together. And it feels like more often than not, they're playing at Wrigley Field too. It's kind of insane how it works that the 250th birthday of the United States of America is on a Saturday. So Fox is going to host Cubs Cardinals, naturally. Please win that game on America's 250th birthday. Please, I beg of you. That would be really cool in front of a national audience. Please win that game. But those are their last home games until the All-Star break for the Chicago Cubs. They get to go to Camden Yards to play the Orioles, and they're going to Great American Ballpark to play the Reds. Then the All-Star break hits, and they'll return against AL Central teams at home. Home for the Twins and the Tigers. Before the last week of July, they spend on the road against the Pirates and the Cardinals. So they'll play the Cardinals twice here in July, and after that second series that they'll play in St. Louis, that's when we will talk again. So, how we feeling now, Cubs fans? I'd say I'm feeling pretty good about this team. I wasn't going to panic after May. If we were still here and they had won maybe 2 series and they had gotten destroyed by the Brewers again, then we're in a different conversation. But they're on a massive heater right now. 2 sweeps in their last 3 series, and the other series they won was on the road against the Brewers. They're pitching Mizorowski, Harrison, and Woodruff. I think they're doing pretty well for themselves right now. If they get through the All-Star break and they win every series, win those last 3 series, I'm going to be feeling great. The thing I would like to see is them continue to have a strong July. If they're going to have a slump before October, I want it to be in August because you don't want to be slumping in October. Or excuse me, you want to be slumping in September because of October, and you don't really want to slump fresh out of the All-Star game. So hopefully that's when it happens. Hopefully it doesn't happen at all. I would love for a slump not to happen at all. But if it is going to happen, I'd rather have it be in August than out of the All-Star break or in September. Anyways, I've been talking at you for a long time, so I'm going to get out of here and let you get back to your day. Go Cubs, go, baby. They're finding a way to just be one of the most ridiculous teams in Major League Baseball right now. What a wacky season this has been. And there's still 3 more months to go. Before playoffs, by the way. Because they're going to make the playoffs. Right? They're going to make the playoffs. I sure hope they're going to make the playoffs. Alright, anyways. That's it for this one. Thanks for stopping by the Chicago Sports Corner. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you really liked it and want to see more content from me. And keep the conversation going down in the comment section below. What do you think? Is this heater going to be sustainable, or are they going to fall back into a slump before the All-Star break? What is going to happen in July, and how are you currently feeling about the Chicago Cubs? That's all for me, and I will see you all in the next one.